And counsel, we're not going to engage in that either anymore.
I was on the case, it wasn't on the record. Now, may we proceed?
Yeah, but the jury heard it, counsel.
Sorry.
Hold on. Thank you. You may resume.
Thank you. Now, you've now read this second paragraph, haven't you, Detective Phillips?
Yes, sir.
And does this refresh your recollection as to what time the photographer Rolf Rokar arrived at the scene that night?
No, it doesn't.
That doesn't help you at all?
No, I'd have to look at the crime scene
Okay.
log to ask what time he got there.
All right, well, let me show you the crime scene log, and let's see if together we can look at it. I'll point it, read that to yourself also.
1006.
Thank you, Your Honor. The other group has not been marked.
Kind of hard to read. I'd have to have a, I don't know what that time is. It's 03 something and 03:15, I'm guessing. We have
Hard to
a-
read, is that correct?
It's
Now,
impossible.
between these two documents, one indicating he arrived about midnight and the other at about...
Objection,
Oh.
objection.
Sustain. It's hearsay.
All right. Do you know whether or not...
This is motion to strike,
Do you-
counsel.
Do you,
Well, the objection was sustained. There's no answer.
do you know whether or not the photographer came there at 12 o'clock and arrived at the location before you and Furman arrived there?
Well, I don't see how he could have done that.
All right. Can I ask you then to read this next paragraph to yourself?
Yes, sir.
Have you read that?
Yes, sir.
Does that in any way refresh your recollection?
Well, I think that if I were reading that paragraph, I'd have to assume that Mr. Roker has myself and Furman mixed up with Van Adder and Lang.
Well, Van Adder and Lang didn't arrive at the location before you did he?
Van Adder and Lang arrived after the photographer, and he's referring in that photograph or that paragraph as to being told to take overall scenes.
Yes.
I told him to take those overall scenes, and I didn't get there till 2:10 in the morning, so I don't know how he could have said that before I arrived.
But when he said earlier that he'd arrived at midnight, you put those two together, what does that mean to you?
Objection, that's not evidence.
Sustain.
Well, as you sit there right now, do you recall what time the photographer arrived?
The photographer arrived after I did. I thought he arrived after 3 o'clock in the morning because he walked up to me and talked to me, and he asked me if it was our case, and I told him it had been taken away from us. It was now robbery homicide's case, and he said, "Do you mind if I go ahead and do the overall photographs?" And I said, "It has nothing to do with the crime scene. It would save some time. Why don't you go ahead and do the overall photographs of the streets, street signs and alleys and so forth?" I directed that photographer to do that.
All right, and so that we're clear that he's talking about you and Furman, when you went over to Rockingham the first time, did you take the photographer with you?
No.
You never said to the photographer to follow us over to Rockingham when you went over to give this notification?
No. Furman asked the photographer to go back with him after we came back to Bundy, and then he went back to Rockingham. Furman asked the photographer to go with him, and then I made a notification to SID to send us out another photographer because we had two crime scenes.
Okay, that's all fine. My question is, before you went over to Rockingham, did you ever say to the photographer Rokar to follow us over to Rockingham Road because there may be additional victims there? Did you ever make that statement to him?
I never made that statement to him, no.
Did Furman ever make that statement to him in your presence?
No.
All right. At any rate, when you first saw this ice cream, what time was it?
I would say somewhere around 2:20, 2:25, the first time we walked through the residence.
All right, and it was sometime after that in your estimation that there were photographers on the scene there, isn't that correct?
Well, again, I can't tell you the exact time, but it was after 3 o'clock when the photographer arrived, and I asked him to do the overall photographs.
Did you ever, when you asked him to do these overall photographs, did you ever ask him to photograph the interior of that residence?
That's part of the crime scene. I didn't ask him to do that.
All right, your answer is no, you didn't
I
ask him
did
to
not
photograph.
ask him to do that.
But while you were there, and before you left to go over Rockingham, you never asked Mr. Rokar or any other photographer to take any pictures of the interior of that residence, is that right?
No, I didn't.
And specifically, you never asked him to photograph the ice cream cup, did you?
Objection, this witness already testified, this is not
I'm
his
asking.
crime scene, not his job to do.
He's
Overall.
It's
asked.
irrelevant.
Overall.
Do you understand the last question?
I did not direct the photographer to take any photographs inside that residence.
All right. Now, once you got inside the residence, you went through the kitchen, is that correct?
Yes?
And once you got into the kitchen, you became aware, did you not, that a phone call had been made from the interior of that residence, isn't that correct?
I was not made aware of that until hours later.
All right, and you knew, by the time you entered the residence, did you not, that this was the home of O.J. Simpson's ex-wife, isn't that correct?
At the time I entered the residence the first time,
Yes, sir.
I did not know that.
All right, when did you become aware of that?
I can tell you that I assumed that might have been the case because of what I was told by Sergeant Rossi, that Nicole Brown Simpson may be one of the victims. As I walked through the house, I noticed photographs. Never having seen Nicole Brown Simpson before, I wasn't sure it was her, but I did see photographs of O.J. Simpson with a female.
You saw his picture inside the house, didn't you?
Yes,
All right. And did that help you think that was Mrs. O.J. Simpson's or Mrs. Nicole Brown Simpson's residence?
well, I had to assume it was probably her residence, yes.
Now, it's true, is it not, Detective Phillips, that upon arrival at the crime scene, you met Lang and Van Adder, and you told them that Nicole Brown Simpson was the ex-wife of O.J. Simpson, the well-known athlete actor. You told them that, didn't you?
Someone had told me that earlier in the evening.
Now, the question is, did you tell them that when they arrived?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's the question. All right. You also told them at that time that Mr. Simpson and Mrs. Nicole Brown Simpson had been embroiled in previous domestic violence situations, one of these resulting in Mr. Simpson having to go to court. You told them that too, didn't
I
you?
never told him that.
So if Detective Lang so indicates in his report, he's wrong?
If he tells you that I told him that, he may have learned that from Detective Furman, but he didn't leave the information from me. I never knew that.
Okay, may I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
I'd like to, you both gave permission. It's okay.
No, no,
I'd like to mark this, Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
I think I should mark this, Your Honor, referring to this, and I think this is D 1021.
1021.
1021, I'd like to approach, and I've shown this to counsel now. I want you to ask you some questions after you read this to yourself. I want you to read two paragraphs. The paragraph 2 and the next to the last paragraph, that one, to yourself, first of all.
In this paragraph here?
Yes, sir, that one.
Okay.
Now, you read those two?
Yes.
Now, I ask you then, does that refresh your recollection, sir, that you, in fact, told Detective Lang about this previous incident involving Mr. Simpson and his ex-wife, resulting in him going to court, and that Mr. Simpson resided at 360 North Rockingham Place in Brentwood? You remember telling Lang and or Van Adder that when they arrived on the scene?
I never knew that, sir, so I couldn't possibly have been the one that told him.
So if Lang puts that in his report, he's all wrong, right?
Well, objection, Your Honor, that misstates what counsel's read in. It indicates here, by inference, what counsel's attempting to indicate is that they were informed about that.
Is that an
upon
objection?
arrival.
Is that an objection? This speaks for itself. I'll be glad to read it then.
Misleading, Your Honor.
Let me
Let me see
how
the
it's-
document.
All right. May I approach you?
You may. Mr. Cochran?
Last paragraph also. Some questions
Yes,
regarding
I read it.
Thank you. Proceed.
You may.
Now, so that we're clear on this, did you ever say to Detectives Lang and/or Van Adder that when they first arrived at the scene, they were met by you? You're Detective 3, Ron Phillips, right? Is that correct?
Yes,
And you're the West Los Angeles Division Homicide Coordinator, isn't that correct?
yes,
But Phillips stated that Victim Brown was the ex-wife of O.J. Simpson, a well-known athlete actor. Did you ever say that?
no.
Or didn't you tell us you found that out at some point? Somebody else told you that?
Someone told me that later that night. I didn't know that before I got there.
Okay, but this is after they arrived.
Okay.
So it's after you were there for a while, and they arrived after 4:10.
All right?
You know it by that time? Did you know
Okay.
it?
I knew it after someone had told me I arrived, yes.
And what time was that?
Sometime between 2:10 and 4:30.
Okay, so did you know it by the time that Lang and Van Adder arrived?
I knew about her being the ex-wife of O.J. Simpson, yes.
Okay, and did you tell Lang or Van Adder that?
I don't recall telling Van Adder and Lang that was believed another detective did. I didn't believe I did.
Does this refresh your recollection that you told?
Well, my recollection is that I didn't.
Does this refresh your recollection?
My recollection, sir, after reading that and before reading that, is that I did not give that information to Van Adder or Lang.
Okay. All right. Additionally, Phillips stated that Mr. Simpson and Victim 1 had been embroiled in previous domestic violence situations, one of these resulting in the arrest of Mr. Simpson. Did you tell him that?
No, I didn't.
Mr. Simpson resided at 360 North Rockingham Place in Brentwood, approximately 2 miles from the crime scene. You tell him that?
I did not tell him that. That was brought up as we made our discussion about going up to Rockingham by Detective Furman after talking to Officer Risky.
All right. But your answer is not all the other stuff. You never told him that. Is that right?
Well, these things came up as far as the address on Rockingham came up in a discussion there, and about O.J. Simpson being the ex-husband of Nicole Brown came up, but nothing I recall ever came up about any domestic violence or the fact that they went to court. I didn't know that until this case was long on its way.
Detective Furman never told you that he responded to the Rockingham location back in 1985 and had written a report in 1989, 4 years later, about that incident in 85?
After this case, he told me about it, yes.
I'm talking about that morning. He didn't tell you that morning?
No.
June 13th.
No,
He never told you that.
no.
All right? And now, so that we're clear, what this document I have here, this is a follow-up report by one of the detectives, isn't that correct?
That's true.
It says, so the record, it says, murder follow-up report, Your Honor, DR 94-08-17431/32, page 2. And that's defendant's 1021. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
All right, now, did you also inform the detectives that Miss Simpson, strike that, were you also informed by Arnell Simpson that her father was in Chicago, Illinois, after leaving the LA area late the night before? Did she tell you that?
She did not tell me that. Kathy, and I don't remember her last name, is the one that told me that over the telephone.
All right. Miss Simpson tell you, Arnell Simpson, that she had returned home at approximately 1 o'clock after attending the movies in Westwood?
She didn't tell me that. I never asked her that question.
Okay. Now, while you were inside the house, Did you go in the living room area at
Yes.
some point? And you hear any music playing in the living room?
Yes.
And where was that music emanating from?
Well, I didn't exactly go over and look and see what it was. I believed it was coming from a stereo in the living room somewhere.
All right. And did you see some candles somewhere in the living room area or downstairs area?
Yeah, they were on a coffee table or some type of table in the middle of the room.
And how many candles did you see?
There was more than one, but I don't remember how many there were.
Any pictures ever taken of these candles?
Not to my knowledge. I didn't direct anybody to take any photographs.
And to your knowledge, did Van Adder and Lang ever direct anybody to take any photographs of these candles?
I don't know, sir. I've never asked.
Have you ever seen any?
No, I've never seen the crime scene photographs at all.
All right, now, you then went upstairs in this cursory look, is that correct?
That's true.
Before you went upstairs, I want to show you an area in the kitchen, if I might. Your Honor, may I cue that up and show this to me?
Yes.
I want to show you an area in the kitchen. And Your Honor, I suppose, how should we mark this? 1022?
Can we freeze frame and print that from the
We will try.
VCR?
We have freeze frame, but I do have a freeze frame of it.
That'd probably be the better way to do it.
Okay, Your Honor. All right, I'd like to cue this up if we can. I want to start just before instructing
Clark?
this witness.
Perhaps we can ask a foundational question and see if it's going.
Oh, we covered this already.
I thought we dealt with this already.
We covered this. You proceed. You can look at the monitor, please. Forward. I'll ask him to stop at the appropriate time.
All right, cut it. Cut it.
It wouldn't stay around when we put it on pause.
It probably has one of those gizmos that after it's paused so the heads don't flatten, or the rollers. Can we go back to that location?
They have the still photo, why not just use it?
Because it's not as clear as the video. I'd like to be able to try my case if I could.
Me too.
If I can tell.
My own, just my.
Counsel, why don't we at least proceed with the still photo? I don't think there's any dispute as to what those items are there.
Certainly, maybe you can get it queued up. I'd like to,
Mr. Harris, you have a small monitor there already, don't you?
It's unfortunately the VCR is not connected to any of those devices.
Terrific, okay.
you close to it? Okay, just put it on this monitor down here first.
All right, let's cut the big screen.
Cut the big screen, just put it on the monitor.
No, just cut the big screen. Is there anything on the juror's monitor, small monitor? No, all right. Anything on the small monitor? No. Thank you.
Now we'd like to start at this point, Your Honor.
Right there.
Okay. Now,
All right.
now put it on the big screen.
Yes.
You can't see it. All right, now, Detective Phillips, can you see that photograph of a telephone in the kitchen area of 875 South Bundy Avenue? Can you see that?
Well, I can see the picture of a telephone.
Yes. Can you see that?
Yes?
Okay, and do you see the names, you see those dials at the top there? You know what those are?
Well, I think so. I think they're speed dials.
Okay, I'm just asking, so you have to testify. Those are speed dialers? And what names do you see opposite the speed dialers?
The only one I can make out is Daddy
All right, you see Daddy on there?
I can't read the second one.
Do you see the name Dita, D-I-I-T-A dash OPA, O-P-A?
All right,
Do you see after that Cora,
Cora.
C-O-R-A?
yes. Then Robin,
You see Robin
and then Pam.
and Pam. You see those?
Yes?
Now, when you walked through that kitchen area, now I'd like, Your Honor, to mark, and I think this is D1022,
1022.
1022. I've shown this to counsel. I'd like to mark this as defendant's next in order, and I want to show this to up close and personal to Detective Phillips, Your Honor. When you were in the kitchen area, or in the living room area, or any room where they had phones, did you ever have occasion to go over to the phones and look and see whether or not there was a speed dialer with any indication of any names close to the speed dialer?
No.
And so later on in the morning, when you were looking, trying to reach O.J. Simpson by phone, if you looked at that speed dialer, you could have determined right off that phone. Isn't that correct?
If I'd have thought about it.
Objection.
Overruled.
That mistake testimony, he wasn't trying to reach Mr. Simpson by phone.
Overruled. No, he was.
He was,
Was.
you know, to see him personally.
Right.
He was
Right.
speaking.
Overruled. All right, but I think we've about exhausted this.
well, I was interrupted, but okay, let me answer my question.
Right.
You never looked at any of the phones in the house to determine whether Daddy's phone number was right there on the speed dialer, did you?
No, I did not.
Now, when you got up the stairs, you... Thank you. When you got up the stairs, you went to the master bedroom you described for us, is that correct?
Yes?
And you saw that the bed appeared mussed or messed up, is that correct?
Unmade?
Unmade? And you saw more candles burning around the bathtub area?
In the master bathroom, yes.
The master bathroom? And do you know how many candles there were lit in the master bathroom area?
There was more than, probably a couple or more.
Like how many?
I don't know, sir.
Okay.
2 or 3 maybe.
You see any photographs of those since that time?
I haven't seen any photographs at all.
All right. Did you see any bath water in the bathtub in the master bedroom?
I don't recall ever seeing any water in the master bathtub.
You have no recollection of that?
No, sir.
Did you write a report in connection with your observations inside that residence?
No, I did not.
Did not write a report at all?
No.
You have any notes?
No.
So what you're testifying about today is just purely and simply your memory from June 13th, early morning hours. Is that right?
That's all I've got to go with.
All right. And now, did you look into the 2 other bedrooms upstairs that belonged to the children while you were there?
Just briefly, yes.
Have the children been taken out at that point?
Yes.
Inside that residence, did you strike that? Did you see a television on in the master bedroom?
Yes, I did, sir.
You notice anything else in that master bedroom we haven't talked about yet?
No.
All right. After you completed your tour of the interior of the residence, you came back outside. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And how many times did you go on tours, if we can call them that, of the exterior of that particular residence that morning before you finally left?
I believe I went on 3, possibly 4.
3, perhaps 4?
I think it was 3.
All right, let's take the first one.
Went with Risky.
All right, the first one was that when you went up through the front, through the
Yes.
through the kind of foliage area there where the plants are,
Yes.
and Risky led you through that way, did he?
Yes.
That's when you went up by the call box?
Yes.
While you were there, by the way, did you ever have occasion to check to see if how that call box worked?
No, sir.
Did you see any officers there check that call box to see how it worked that morning?
I don't recall anybody checking that call box.
You never saw Lang or Van Etter do that either?
I know that I overheard discussion about it, but I don't know who was doing it.
Did you ever see anybody do it? That's the question.
I may have gone out at one time to listen for a click much later on in the day. I think I did that once.
Well, when was that?
Well, that was, as I say, it was much later in the day.
Like what?
I don't have any idea of the time, sir. It would be later. In fact, it may not even have been that day.
You have a report on that?
No.
It's not on your log. And you left at 10 o'clock, right?
Well, that's one of the times I left there at 10 o'clock. And as I said, that may not even have been that day that I'm referring to, but I remember listening to that click sometime during this investigation, and I'm not sure what day it was.
But weren't you off the case after that morning? Why were you back out there to listen to a click?
Oh, there was times when they called us up to assist, to go out and assist them in doing stuff, or...
All right. Well, if you listened to a click and you heard a click, can you show me a report where you wrote that down or you told somebody about that?
I didn't write anything down.
What else did you go back out and do that you've not written down?
That would be it.
All right. So the question was, though, did you see any detectives that morning checking that call box out and seeing how it worked from inside the residence?
I don't recall seeing anybody do that.
Okay. While you were there, in addition to calling the coroner, it's also very important, is it not, to call the criminalists out so they can start trying to collect evidence. That's important also, isn't it?
That would have been done by the homicide investigator that was assigned to the scene.
My question, listen to my question. My question was, it's also important, is it not, to call the criminalists early to the scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And during the time that you were in charge, between 2:10, 2:38, did you ever call the criminalists?
No.
Do you know the names of the criminalists who ultimately came on this particular case?
I only know of one. I think that was Fung.
Fung?
Fung?
Is that F-U-N-G?
I don't.
What, did Mr. Fung come to the scene prior to the time that you left?
Which scene?
The Bundy scene.
I don't know what time Mr. Fung got to the Bundy scene. I
Okay.
had nothing to do with him.
All right, no, but I'm asking your recollection. You went back to Bundy.
I don't recall him coming to that location.
Well, you were there when the coroners got there about 9:10 in the morning, right?
That's correct.
Would I be correct in assuming that the coroners came before the criminals came?
I don't know, sir.
Well, if we were to look at the log, would that help you, Gang?
It would tell me what time they got there, but it still wouldn't refresh my memory as to me seeing them there.
All right, well, you have no recollection of seeing him at all at Bundy?
No, I don't. Not that morning.
All right. You see him at Rockingham?
Later on in the day, yes.
No, I'm talking about in the morning now. You see him in the morning.
No.
And what is the criminal's job?
To obtain the evidence, to book it, to obtain it.
And they're called usually by the investigating detectives, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you know, do you not, that the criminalists on 24-hour call, aren't they?
Well, sure they are.
Just like you are as a detective. Is that
Yes.
You never call for the criminalists, and as far as you know, you never heard Langer Van Etter call for the criminalists to come out to Bundy, at least while you were there. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not saying they didn't call while I was there.
I'm asking you, did you ever hear them call while you were there, sir? That's all I'm asking.
I did not hear the call go out to call them, yes,
While you were there, right?
while I was there.
Okay. Now, we've gone through this first. When you took the first exterior tour with Risky, you didn't go inside the house at that point, right?
Yes?
You went inside?
Well, at some time during that first initial cursory walkthrough of the crime scene, Officer Risky walked us through the house.
Now, I thought in the first one, when you walked up in the kind of foliage area, I thought you walked up the call box. Did you go in the house at that point?
Well, we walked up to where the bodies were at,
Okay.
and then we backtracked out, then walked around southbound over to the alley, walked into the garage, walked into the house, walked out, viewed the bodies, walked down the driveway, or the sidewalk area, the walkway area, out to the back, walked back into the house, and took a cursory look through the house.
When you walked down this sidewalk area, Mr. Clark asked you many times about you being careful. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Where you step. As an experienced homicide detective, you know that there are times when you cannot always see footprints. Isn't that correct?
You may not see all the footprints, yes.
You know that from your experience. Isn't that correct?
That's true.
so that if you can't see them, sometimes you step in things where you can't see it. Isn't that correct?
That would be possible.
How many, you were taking these various and sundry trips, how many officers were there walking with you and Risky as you walked on this pathway you described? You, Furman, and Risky? And later, when Marion and other so then, they went to the street. In your direct examination, there was mention, I believe, strike that. Did you learn that Officer Risky touched Mr. Goldman's eye that was partially open at some point? Did you hear that?
No,
You never heard that?
no.
You knew at one point that Officer Risky went around to the north of the property on the other side of the fence. You knew about that, is that correct?
He took me around there.
You walked around there, so you saw that.
Yes.
With regard to this walkway area, do you recall seeing that the walkway was very stained with berries from a tree that had dropped down? Have you seen that at all?
I believe there was.
All right, if we could find you, and I want to try to get a couple of pictures which I think demonstrate that. So many photographs. Let's see. Let's try 45 B, C, D, E, if we can. Because there's so many photographs, I'm going to ask you to cut the feed because we won't know until we actually see. We're looking for a particular photographs, Your Honor, at this point that I want to show the witness.
People's Exhibit 45A.
Maybe move on that one.
45B. 45C. 45D.
Just stop there. Stop that one. Now, what number is that, Johnson?
That is 45E.
45E,
I'm sorry, that's 45D.
45D, Your Honor. Can you see it on the monitor, Detective Phillips?
Yes, sir.
And I think you were asking questions about this particular photograph regarding some alleged bloody footprints or whatever. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You see those shoes there? Can you see those? There's a pair of white shoes or light shoes and also a pair of dark shoes up there. You know
Yes.
those shoes belong to?
No, sir.
Would I be correct in assuming that you remember that the photographer Rokar that morning was wearing some light-colored shoes, like those shoes there?
I have no idea what kind of shoes Mr. Rokar was wearing.
You have no recollection of that?
No, sir.
All right. So you don't recall whose shoes those are?
I don't know.
All right. And the shoes at the top, you can't tell us whose shoes those are? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, move on, John.
E.
Now, with regard to these footprints, the shoe prints you were asked about, do you recall that as you looked down this particular route where these shoe prints were supposedly going toward the alleyway, that there came a time that you saw two shoe prints that were facing parallel toward the house, perpendicular to the house. Do you remember two footprints that went right toward the house?
No, sir.
You remember seeing those?
No, sir.
Anybody ever show you those?
No, sir.
And yesterday when Ms. Clark was asking you questions about the blood drops, may I have just a second here?
This is 45F.
All right, let's try 45G.
45G.
Now, try the next one. Want to try?
45H.
No.
45I.
Why don't you move to 48 series? Move to 48.
48.
48. All right, yes, I think this is one of them. Now, Detective, in this photograph, it's a longer view. Was my understanding, you see that 112 up there?
Yes, sir.
Does that purport to be like some kind of a blood drop?
I'd have to look at, well, I think that was 112 was a blood drop. I can't see that from this photograph.
Okay. And could you tell us how far the nearest footprint was from that alleged blood drop?
No, sir.
Well, you were out there that morning. What's your best estimate?
I would not, I don't recall.
4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet?
I couldn't even guess, sir.
You can't even guess?
I did no measurements. I did no crime scene evaluation. I did no crime scene sketch.
All right, you just saw your cursory look, is that
I
right?
would have no idea what distance is.
Okay, fine. Jonathan, next one.
48B.
All right, move on.
48C.
Okay, move on.
48D.
Move on.
48E.
Move on.
48F.
Right. Now, you see 48F there?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you see that? I want you to look, first of all, can you step out, can you see up on this banister, this white banister?
Yes.
You see what appears to be some little berries or whatever that have fallen from the trees above? Can you see that?
Well, I recall them as being some type of berry or something like that, yes.
Reddish in color?
A berry,
Okay, a berry.
purple, reddish, brownish,
All right.
berry.
All right, some kind of colored berry. All right. Now, I want you to look at those stairs there as depicted in 48F. Do you see that how these stairways are stained? Do you see also that there's apparently some berry residue on those particular stairs? You see that?
Well,
No, the picture speaks for itself. I'm asking you.
No, you're testifying that's berry residue. We don't know that.
All right, well, let me phrase it another way, Your Honor. Perhaps berry residue was a bad choice of words. What's that on those steps that looks like those berries coming from the trees? Well, is that... Do you remember... I'll move to strike that question, too.
What
I'll
does
strike
it
the
look
question.
like to you?
Yeah, okay.
I'm not a horticulturist. I have no idea.
No, I know. I want to make that as clear as possible. Now, look at that photograph. Now, what do you see in that photograph on those steps?
I see debris on the steps. I
What
see
kind of debris?
Some of them brownish, red, purplish berries.
All right. And they're going up those stairs, and those are the steps that go up the back way there. Is that correct?
There's a lot of it.
A lot of it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Will this be a good time, Your Honor?
Good as any. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a recess so we can switch court reporters at this time. Please remember my admonition to you, don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Deputy Magnero, let's take him upstairs. All right, council will resume at 25 minutes after 3. All right, thank you. And Detective Phillips, you can step down. Be back. All right, let the record reflect we've been rejoined by all of our jury members. Detective Phillips is still on the witness stand. Good afternoon again, Detective Phillips. You're reminded you're still under oath. Mr. Cochran, you may continue your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just another question or two about 48F, if I can have it back up. Detective Phillips, when you saw that area on the walkway where you saw the debris back there, did you find that sometimes that the debris would adhere to or come in contact with your shoes as you walked in that area?
I never paid any attention to that, sir. I never checked that out.
You never checked that out, huh?
No, sir.
All right. You see it there, though, now? Do you have any question in your mind that that would come in contact with your feet and shoes if you were walking back there?
Well, imagine if you stepped on it, it would come in contact with your feet, yes.
Yes, and then to get back there, you'd have to step back there, wouldn't you, to walk back there? Which you did?
If I-
You did walk back there, didn't you?
I did walk back there, yes.
Okay, sir. Now, with regard to the location at Bundy, you've told us that you did not take any notes at all, either Bundy or Rockingham. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's true, is it not, that your partner, Detective Furman, did in fact make some notes. Isn't that correct?
I believe so.
And if you were to see those notes, you'd recognize his handwriting, wouldn't you?
If he wrote it, yes.
He
I've
printed
seen
a
it before, yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to have a 3-page document D 1022, Your Honor. I'd like to show it to counsel and folks who are with us.
All right, 1022.
23.
1023.
Plus 23, I understand. Your Honor.
All right.
like to approach, it's a 4-page document, Your Honor, D-1022. Dr. Phillips, I'd like to show you, let's look at the first page of D-1022. Do you recognize the printing contained therein?
It appears to be Detective Furman's printing.
And you recognize that from your prior association and the fact that he's your partner for some number of years, is that correct?
Looks like his handwriting, yes.
All right, and these are notes that he took in the course of the investigation that particular evening, is that correct?
Yes. I assume they are. I just took them from him and handed them over to Van Adder and Lang. I never read them. So, if you're asking me if these are the notes that he took that night,
Yeah. Well, I'm asking you first of all, is this his handwriting?
it appears to be yes.
Okay. By the way, did you find a handwritten note on an upstairs coffee table at that residence?
No, I didn't.
Did Detective Furman find a handwritten note on the upstairs coffee table?
I wouldn't know that, sir.
You don't recall that at all?
No.
I want you to look at this item number 5 and see if this refreshes your recollection at all. You read it to yourself.
Okay.
Does that refresh your recollection at all?
I remember seeing the pizza menu.
And where was this pizza menu?
It was outside by the victim.
There was a pizza menu outside on the ground near where Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's body was found.
I believe so.
And was there a note upstairs, a handwritten note on the upstairs coffee table saying Cara, C-A-R-A, with the phone number 575-5713, California Pizza Kitchen?
I don't recall seeing that note.
Was that ever booked?
I don't know, sir. I didn't book any items in this case.
Did you ever discuss that with your partner, Detective Furman?
No.
Did you see this last page?
No, I didn't.
Is that the handwriting also?
This appears to be his handwriting, yes.
Now, while you were at the scene there at Bundy, did you and your partner Furman theorize that the suspect or suspects had run through that area, that walkway area, and that the suspect or suspects had possibly been bitten by the Akita, the dog?
Now, let me mention one thing.
Okay, before you mention-
Furman's not my partner.
Okay, is that your partner?
No, I supervise Mark Furman's work. So he's an individual that works for me. He's not my partner at this time.
I want to clear that up then. And was that on June 13th?
Yes.
Your partner also? So he worked for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Did you and Mark Furman, who worked for you, theorize that the suspect or suspects had been bitten by this Akita dog somewhere in that walkway that particular night?
I never heard that theory by anybody.
You see that indicated in Mark Furman's notes?
Yes?
Objection, Your Honor, this call for speculation.
That's hearsay. What's in the notes are hearsay.
Did you or any officer in your presence that night check with any local hospitals to see if any person had gone to that hospital for treatment of a dog bite?
No, sir.
You told us earlier that while still at Bundy, the Akita was tethered to a post of some kind. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you know who took custody of that Akita?
I believe that under my direction it was taken to the animal pound, or the animal pound came and picked it up, but it was at my direction that it be done.
Do you know whether anybody ever checked the Akita's mouth or its teeth to determine whether or not it had bitten anyone that night?
I don't know that that was ever done.
And did you give any specific instructions in that regard?
No, sir.
Did you hear Lang or Van Adder do that?
No, sir.
Now, you described for us yesterday that at strike that. Have you ever seen any pictures of this pizza menu that was outside near Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's body as it was out there? You see any pictures of that?
The only crime scene pictures I've seen, sir, are the ones you've showed me here.
Okay.
I haven't gone through them.
Okay, and have you seen some with Miss Marcia Clark?
The ones that have been shown here in court.
All right. And did you see this photographer, Rokar, or anyone else take any pictures of that menu that night?
Never saw Mr. Rokar take any photographs other than some photographs of the street when we was first arrived. So overall orientation photos.
And even the photograph that was taken of Mark Furman, you never saw that taken either?
No, sir.
Is that right, sir? Now, After you had gotten the call or talked to Captain Gardlin about 2:38 and you knew you were off this case, you basically, with the exception of some minor things, ceased your activities. Is that correct?
That's correct.
When was it that you were told that you had to give this so-called VIP notification to Mr. O.J. Simpson?
When
When were you told that?
When I first arrived at the location at about 2:10, 2:11, 2:12.
And who told you that?
When I first arrived at the location, Sergeant Rossi was on a cellular phone talking to Commander Keith Bushy, and he handed me the phone.
All right, so is Keith Bushy the one who told you that?
Commander Keith Bushy, yes.
All right, he told you to give O.J. Simpson some kind of VIP notification, is that right?
Didn't mention it as VIP notification. He just said to make sure that you notify Mr. Simpson, if possible, in person, prior to the news media finding out, because it would be insensitive for him to find out through the news media about what's taking place at this house on Bundy.
Right. Now, first of all, doesn't the LAPD policy apply to the next of kin?
Yes?
And in this instance, if Mr. Simpson was the ex-husband, Mr. Nicole Brown Simpson, he was not the next of kin, was he?
Well, our main concern was his
Now,
children.
can you just answer my question? He was not the next of kin, was he?
Not of Nicole Brown Simpson.
Did Commander Bushy ask you to make sure you gave some notification to Nicole Brown Simpson's parents, wherever they were?
He didn't do it. We did it.
All right. Did anybody ever search in that house to see whether or not her mother's phone number was part of the speed dialing?
I didn't do
You
any
know?
searching, sir.
And so the LAPD's policy talks about next of kin, doesn't it?
Yes?
Isn't that right?
Yes?
And the policy also talks about giving, where possible, person-to-person notice as opposed to over the phone. Isn't that correct?
If possible, yes.
And part of that's because of city liability. If you call somebody up over the phone and tell them something, they might faint or have a heart attack. Isn't that right?
I suppose that is brought into it.
That's part of the policy, isn't it?
I suppose that's part of the reasons.
Okay. Now, so in this instance, when you were talking to Commander Bushy at 2:10, did he tell you to give some personal knowledge to the parents of Nicole Brown Simpson?
No, he did not.
You were concerned about Mr. O.J. Simpson, and you never at any time looked inside the house to see whether or not there was a number where you could call him in the house, right? Inside Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's house. You didn't do that.
When you say concerned about Mr. Simpson, I was going to make notification to Mr. Simpson. What I was concerned about was the welfare of his children.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm asking you, did you look inside to expedite any search or trying to find him by looking for his number inside the house?
I did not do that, sir.
Okay. And so as I understand it, even though you were off the case as of 2:38, when you and the other officers left to go over to Rockingham, what was your purpose in going over to Rockingham if you were now off the case?
To go over and notify Mr. Simpson of what I'd been told to do and possibly assist Tom Lang or Phil Van Adder if they needed anything else. We were already up. We were there.
All right. Well, was there any problem now? They were now on the case, and they were both senior detectives from robbery homicide. They now arrived at the scene, right?
Yes?
You got in there at 4:10 and 4:25, right?
Yes?
It's now about 5 o'clock in the morning, right?
Okay.
And did you ever hear Phil Van Adder say, "I used to work West Los Angeles. I know where the Rockingham residence is"? Did you ever hear him say that?
No, I don't. I don't remember him ever saying that. I know that Phil Van Adder used to work West L.A.
Would you be surprised if he testified he knew where Rockingham was and how to get there from Bundy? Would you be surprised at that?
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
All right. Now, when you were talking with the other detectives, with Mark Furman, did you ever hear him say, the two of you were just waiting around, "I know that," strike that, "I know where O.J. Simpson lives because I've been there before"? Did you ever hear him say that in your presence?
I think that was in the conversation we were talking about where he lived, and he said, "I know he lives up off of Sunset someplace. I'd been to his house before, but I don't remember exactly where it is." That's when he asked another officer to run the Jeep license plate. We came back with the address. He asked that officer, "Is that address, where's that address in relation to?" And Risky said it's near Cliffwood. And then Mark Furman says, "Yeah, I know where it's at,"
All right, when was that? What time was that?
before we ever left the Bundy location.
All right, well, what time?
Probably 5 minutes or so before we left.
So maybe about 4:55 or there in that time frame?
We were preparing to go up there, and we were trying to make plans to do that.
All right. In addition to indicating that he knew where Mr. O.J. Simpson lived, didn't he say he'd been over there in response to some domestic call back in 1985? Didn't he say that to you?
Never told me why he was up at that location. He told me he responded to that call when he worked patrol.
He didn't tell you why?
No, sir.
Did you ask him?
No, sir.
Did you hear Langer Van Adder ask him?
No, sir.
Now, before we leave Bundy, while at the scene, you came there with a cellular telephone, did you?
Yes, sir.
And is this a City of Los Angeles issued cellular telephone?
No, it's not.
This your own personal cellular telephone?
Yes, it is.
And you made a number of calls from that location that night, is that right?
I made several calls during that day, yes.
All right, can I approach you?
Yes.
I'm placing on the board now, Your Honor, people's 60 for identification. And, Detective, so that we're clear about this, this is a record of your cellular calls made, let's talk about June 12th and through June 13th, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you got this call shortly after 1 o'clock in the morning, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so that would be 6:13 after 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, sir.
You then made a number of calls. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 calls within about 12 minutes, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
After you got the call? Where were those calls made from?
Those are all calls made to Los Angeles police detectives' residences.
All right, and those were 5 calls made almost immediately after you got the call to come to the location?
Yes, as I had previously stated, 3 of those calls, the detectives were unable to respond for various reasons, and 2 of the calls were people that did respond.
All right, now, you were at home at this point, right?
No, I was in my car.
So let's see, you got the call at 1 o'clock or 1:05,
Yes?
and you were in your car by 1:18?
Yes, sir.
You're a fast dresser, aren't you?
I have it all laid out for me the night